Hello, Brovs. I'm going to attempt to read some of The Wandering Heir, A Christmas Story by Charles Reade in the dark, not in the dark, but at nighttime, despite the font being kind of hard to read. Chapter 3. Two little rivers meet and run to the sea, as naturally as if they had always meant to unite. Yet go to their sources in the hills, how wide apart, how unlikely to come together or even approach each other. Why one rises south and the other northeast, and they do not even look the same way at starting. It is hard to believe they are doomed to trickle hither and thither, meander and curve, and meet at last to part no more. And so it was with many human lives. The facts of this story compel me to trace from their tiny sources two human currents that I think will bear out my simile. The James Annesley River is set flowing, so now for the Joanna Philippa Chester and Old England. She was the orphan daughter of two very superior people who died too young. Her mother was a Spaniard, her father an Englishman, and a lawyer of great promise. They had but this child. She inherited her mother's jewels and £13,000. Her father, impressed by some cruel experience in his own family, had an almost morbid fear lest she should be caught up by some fortune hunter and married for her money, she being a black-browed girl with no great promise of beauty at that time. During his last illness, he thought much of this, and spoke of it very earnestly to the two gentlemen he had appointed her trustees. These two, Mr. Hanway and Mr. Thomas Chester, hated each other decently but sincerely. Mr. Chester knew that, and with a lawyer's shrewdness, counted a little on it as well as on their attachment to himself to get his views carried out. He made them promise him in writing that Joanna's fortune should be concealed from her until she should be 24, or some worthy person unacquainted with her means should offer her a marriage of affection. She was to be brought up soberly, taught to read and write very well, and cast accounts, and do plain stitching, but never to sit at a harpsichord nor a sampler. She was to live with Mr. Hanway at Colebrook till she was 17, and then with Mr. Thomas Chester, her uncle, till her marriage. Each trustee in turn to receive 100, I still don't know what that is, and I should look it up, lira, a year for her board and instruction. Her fortune was all out at good mortgage, paying larger interest than is to be had on that security nowadays. The 100 lira, I don't know if that's right, a year was of some importance to Mr. Hanway, and he was not at all sorry that Joanna Philippa was to be taught only what he and his housekeeper could teach her. That saved expense. He did teach her an hour every day, and she was so quick that at 10 years old she could read and write, and some better than a good many duchesses. But the rest of the day she was entirely neglected, so she was nearly always out of doors, acquiring more health and strength and freckles than a girl is entitled to, and playing pranks that ought to have been restrained. She was, at this time, a most daring girl, and she always played with the boys and picked up their ways, and by superior intelligence became their leader. From them she learned to look down on her own sex, and the women in return called her a tomboy and a witch. Indeed, there was something witch-like in her agility, her unbounded daring, and her great keen gray eyes with thickish eyebrows as black as jet, that actually met, not on her brow, but with a slight dip on the bridge of her nose. One summer afternoon, being then about 11, she had just ridden one of Farmer Newton's horses to the water to drink, according to her custom, and driven the others in before her, when she became aware of a gentleman in black with a pale but noble face looking thoughtfully at her. It was the new vicar, a learned clerk from Oxford. He smiled on her and said, "My young madam, may I speak with you?" He knew who she was. "Aye, sir," says she, and in a moment, from riding astride like a boy, she whipped one leg over and was seated like a woman, and brought the horse out and slid off down his fat ribs, and lighted like a bird at the parson's feet, and took her hat off to him. Instead of curtsying, "Here be I," said the imp. "My dear," says the vicar, "that is not a pastime for a young gentlewoman." Joanna hung her head. "Not," said the parson, "that I would deprive you of amusement at your age. That were cruel. But have you no little horse of your own to ride?" "Nay, not so much as a jenny ass. Daddy Hanway is. I know what he is, but I won't say till we are better acquainted." "Come, come, we are to be better acquainted then." "Aye, and you will. May I go, sir?" "Why, we have not made acquaintance. Madam, I desire to show you my house. Alack, and I am dying to see it, so come on." And she caught him by the hand with a fiery little grasp. Have with you then," cried the parson, affecting excitement, and proposed a race to the vicarage. So they sped across the meadow. His reverence was careful to pound the earth and make a great fuss, but not to beat the imp, who indeed skimmed along like a swallow. "There," said she, panting, "there's none can beat me at running in the parish, except that Dick Caulfield. Odd rabbit him." The vicar allowed that refined expression to pass for the present, and took her into his study. "Oh, Jiminy!" she cried, "here's books! I never thought there was many in the world." "What, you are fond of books?" said he, eagerly. "I dote on 'em, especially voyages. I have read every book in our house twice over. There's the Bible, and Culpepper's Herbal, and Pilgrim's Progress, and the Ready Reckoner, and the Prayer Book, and a volume of the Spectator, and the Book of Receipts, and the Book of Thieves. And which do you like the best of all those?" "Why, the Pilgrim's Progress, to be sure. 'Tis all travels." "Strange," said the clergyman, half to himself, "that a girl born in a country village should be so fond of travels." "Country village," said she. "Drat the country village. I ran away from it once, but they caught me at Hounslow. I was only 8. Better luck next time, parson." "Nay, Mistress Joanna, and please you call me Philippa. I like that name best." "Well then, Mistress Philippa, I am of your mind about traveling. My studies and a narrow income, somewhat drawn upon by poor relations, have kept me at home, but my mind has traveled on the wings of books, as yours shall, Mistress Philippa, if you please. See, here's purchase for you in Dampier, Cowley, Sharp, Woodus, Rogers, where you shall find the cream of Robinson Crusoe, stout John Dunton, and Montaigne's travels, short but priceless. Here be Coryat's Crudities and Morrison's Itinerary, 2 travelers of the good old school that footed all Europe and told no lies. Philippa, often as I sat in my study or meditated beneath the stars, have I longed to escape the narrow terms of this small island and see the strange and beautiful world. First of all, the Holy Land, where the still vine, the olive tree, and the cornfield grow side by side, where the Dead Sea rolls o'er those wicked cities, and Lot's wife and Sultan Pillar still looks on to see Rome, that immortal city where ancient and modern history meet and mingle, and monuments of surpassing grandeur and beauty. Then would I run east again and behold the mighty caves of Elephanta, monument of a race that is no more, the pyramids of Egypt and her temples approached by avenues of colossal sphinxes a mile long, thence to the pole, and see spectral glories, great temples and palaces of prismatic ice, of which this new poet, Mr. Poth, singeth well. As Atlas fixed, each hoary pile appears, the gathered winter of 1,000 years. Then away to sunny lands, where forever the sky is blue and flowers spring spontaneous, and the earth poureth forth pines and melons and luscious fruits without the hand of man, and universal Pan, knit with the graces and the hours and dance, leads on the eternal spring. Then I would see the famous mountains of the world, Ararat, where the ark rested, as the waters of the flood abated, Tenerife's peak shaped like a sugar loaf, and by mariners seen often in the clear glassy sky, 100 miles at sea, and above all the mighty Andes, so high that no aspiring cloud may reach his bosom, and his great eye looks over, ever calm, from the empyrean upon half the world. The scholar would have gone on, dreaming aloud an hour more, but his words, that to him were only words, were fire to the aspiring girl, and set her pale and panting. "Oh, parson," she cried, "for the love of God, take hat and come along to all those places." And she crammed his hat into his hand and tugged at him amain. "My young mistress," said he gravely, "you do use that sacred name too lightly." "Well, then, for the love of the devil, I care not. So we do go this minute." Then he held up his finger, and with kind and soothing words, cooled this fiery creature down a little, and put Dampier's voyages into her hand. Down she flung herself, for it was erect as a dart, or flat as a pancake with this young gentlewoman, no half measures, and sucked the book like an egg. He gave her the right to come and read when she pleased, and from this beginning by degrees she became his pupil very willingly. He played the viol di gamba himself, so he asked her, did she like music? "No," said she, "I hate it." Would she like to draw and color? Aye, but not to keep me from my travels. It turned out that she had an excellent gift at drawing, and a fine eye for color, so, with instructions, she soon got to draw from nature, and to color very prettily. The only objection was, in less than 6 months from the first lesson, every roadside barn door within 5 miles presented the gross caricature in chalk of the farmer who owned it, and often of his wife and family into the bargain. The number and distance of these sculptures, as she was pleased to call them, why, I know not, revealed an active foot, a skillful hand, and a heart not to be daunted by moonlight. The parson tried to break her spirit with arithmetic. Arithmetic? Oh, sorry. Arithmetic? Good job, buddy. Arithmetic. But no, she was all docility and goodness by his side. She would learn arithmetic or anything else with a rapidity that nothing but a precocious girl ever equaled, but a daring demon when he was not at her back. In vain he begged her to consider that she was now 13 years and must begin to play the gentlewoman. "I cannot," said she. "Gentlewomen are such mincing apes. The boys, they scorn them, and so do I. They make me sick." "Parson," said she, "I love you," and she made but one spring, and her arms were round his neck with the same movement. "Grant me a favor," said she, "because I love you. Have me made a boy. 'Twill not cost much." The parson looked at her, gazing imploringly right into him with her great eyes, and sore puzzled what she would be at now. However, the explanation followed in due course. "Why," said she, "'tis but the price of a coat and waistcoat and breeches, instead of these things," slapping her petticoats contemptuously, "and then I am a boy. Oh, 'twill be sweet to have my freedom, and not to be checked at every word because I am a she." "Why, what stuff is this, child?" said his reverence. "Putting these in boy's clothes will not make thee a boy." "Yes, it will. You know it will. Nay, to be sure, there's my hair, but I can soon cut that." "Now, Philippa," said her preceptor, "I cannot have you cutting your beautiful hair, which is a woman's crown, and talking nonsense. The truth is, when once one has been christened Joanna Philippa in the church, one is a girl forever." "Alas," whined Philippa, "and it is so?" Methought it was the clothes the old folk put us in that did our business. Then, going into a fury, oh, why did I not scratch their eyes out when they came to christen me a girl? Why cried I not aloud, no, 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 a boy, a boy? Well, we must make the best of it, my dear. I will read you what Erasmus saith in his Guanaco Sinidron, I don't know how to say it, of the female estate and its advantages. Then you will see that each condition of life hath its comforts and its drawbacks. The compass of my tale does not permit me to deal largely in conversations. Otherwise, the intercourse of this gentle scholar's mind and this sharp girl's was curious and interesting enough. It left Philippa at 14 years of age very superior to the ladies of the period, of in reading, writing, arithmetic, drawing, walking, leaping, and running, but far more innocent in spite of her wildness than if she had consorted with the women of that day, whose tongues were too often foul. At this time the good parson fell ill, and having friends in office, obtained leave to go to the continent. He returned in 2 years and found his pupil transformed into a tall, beautiful girl. Ever her black brows became her now, and dazzled the beholder. But such a change, she was now extremely shy, avoided the boys, blushed whenever they spoke to her, and played the prude even with her late preceptor. She had a great many new ideas in her head. Need I say that love was one of them? But as there was nobody in the parish that approached the being she had fixed on, young, beautiful, fair, brave, good, and that had made the good tour, the grand tour, her favorite companion after all was the good parson, only she now approached even him with a vast show of timidity. To tell the truth, she had just as much devil in her as ever, but on the surface was mighty guarded, demure, and bashful. And now, all of a sudden, came a lover. Mr. Hanway, seeing the time draw near when he must surrender to the other trustee, could not resist the temptation of trying to get her for his son Silas. Silas was older than she, though he looked but a hobbledehoy. The old man, to carry out his scheme, indulged Miss with a pony and a moderately masculine riding dress, with a little purple velvet riding cap and white feather, very neat, and set Silas to ride with her. She used to pace out of sight demurely. She used to pace out of sight demurely, then dash out of the road into the fields and away as the crow flies over hedge and ditch, depositing Silas in the latter now and then. She treated his clumsy courtship with queenly contempt, and once, when he went to kiss her, she fetched him a slap that made his ears ring famously. One day, when Mr. Hanway was out, this young lady, who was now mighty curious and always prying about the house, gave the old gentleman's desk a shake with both hands. She had often admired this desk. It was of enormous size and weight, and sculptured at the sides, an antique piece of furniture. When she shook it, something metallic seemed to ring at the bottom. She looked inside, and there was nothing but papers. That is odd, thought Joanna Philippa. She shook it again. Same metallic sound. Then, with some difficulty, though she was a most sinewy girl, she turned it over and saw a little button, scarcely perceptible. She pressed it, and lo, a drawer flew out at quite another part of the desk. That drawer dazzled her. It was literally full of sparkling jewels, some of them very beautiful and valuable. She screamed with surprise. She screamed again with delight. She knew in a moment they were her mother's jewels, which Mr. Hanway had told her were a few trifling things not to be shown her till her 21st birthday, and then she was to have them for her own. "Oh, thou old knave," said she. She did not hesitate one moment. "I'll have them, and keep them, too, if I hang for it, for they are mine." So she swept them all into her apron, and flew upstairs with them, and hid them, then back again, and put the desk straight. That night she had them all on, one after another, before she went to bed, and marched about the room like a peacock, surveying herself. Next day she took fright and carried them out of the house, and hid them in the thatch of an old cart house that was never used nowadays, so not likely to be repaired. On moonlight nights, she would sometimes take a little hand glass out and wear the diamonds, the diamond cross and brooch, and prayed with them sparkling in the moonlight. Her bedroom commanded the view of this sacred cart shed, and she always took a look at it the last thing before she went to sleep. Silas was to go to London to be articled as a lawyer's clerk. His father thought now was the time to make a lasting impression, so he provided the youth with a ring to give her and instructed him that he must kiss her at parting, say he loved her dearly, and get her to betroth herself to him, and so put the ring on her finger. When the time came, Miss was on the lawn, hoeing weeds out of the gravel. Silas went to her with the ring. Mr. Hanway was dressing, but he managed to peep behind a curtain at the approaching ceremony. It did not go smooth. The girl was ready to give Silas a civil goodbye, but at the very mention of love, she laughed him to scorn, then nettled him, and he told her she would be very lucky to get as good a husband. Come, sweetheart, said he, here's the ring. E'en let me put it on thy hand and give us a buss at parting. I'll take no ring of thine, said the girl, beginning to pant at the double proposal. I'd rather die than wed thee. And I'd rather die than not wed thee. He threw his arms round her neck and dragged her to him. Let me go, she screamed. You are a churl and a ruffian. I'll not be used so. She struggled violently and screamed, and when nothing else would do, she tore herself clear with a fierce cry, all on fire with outraged modesty and repugnance, and gave him a savage blow on the bridge of the nose with her little hoe. It brought him to one knee, and with that, I'm not sure. And with that, she was gone like the wind, and flung herself sobbing into a garden seat out of sight. Now this severe blow was not dangerous, but it made the lover's nose bleed profusely. It bled a great deal as he kneeled, half stupefied, and when he got up a little way, it bled freely again. He thought it would never leave off. His love was cooled forever. All he cared about now was not spoiling his new clothes. So after a while he walked away very slowly, with his nose projecting like a gander's, and he was scarcely clear of the premises, when Joanna Philippa, who had peeped and seen him off, came back to her occupation, looking as demure and innocent as any young lady you ever saw. She was rather dismayed, though, when she found the grass incarnadined and the gardener's turf cutter literally drenched with blood, both blade and handle. While she was contemplating this grim sight and wishing she had not hit so hard, the old man came to her all of a sudden, white with rage. "Aye, look at your work, you monster," he cried, "and the poor boy leaving us for good. You have killed him, or nearly, and I'll trounce you for it." He gripped her by the arm, I suppose it's supposed to mean, but who knows. He gripped her by the arm and raised his cane over her head. She was terrified and cried for mercy. "Oh, uncle, I did not mean. Oh, pray, don't kill me. Don't kill me." And I will leave off there since it's halfway through the chapter, and I will read the rest tomorrow proper. Tomorrow morning, that is. Goodbye, bruv. Goodbye.